So let's talk about the CV problem. I mean, why do we have to do CVs at all? Why can't I just tell you I'm really cool, give me a job? Well, the reason is that it's basically a numbers problem. So there are more people than jobs. We need a quick way to introduce ourselves, our skills and our experience. For us, for the person who's applying, it means that we can apply for lots of jobs quickly in a standardized way. And for recruiters, they have a standardized way to kind of filter and look through the CVs, right? It's just a standard way of doing things, like a parking ticket or a railway ticket. It's just easier and it's quicker for both parties involved. Now, there was a time all the way back in the days of yore when actually a human being would sort of get a piece of paper and read through and go, oh yeah, Steve seems like a really nice guy. Now that still happens, but the fact of the matter is that there are now so many people and so many jobs that jobs boards came along and they said, hey, company A, we could help you by posting your job on a jobs board and you'll reach way more people than you can do with your one poor HR person who needs to recruit for those roles. Now these jobs boards like Indeed, LinkedIn, Monster, all of those types of things that you'll be familiar with will use something that's called an ATS. An ATS means an application tracking system. Now the chances are if you have applied for a job online, you've gone through some form of ATS. Now what an ATS does is really simply, it is a type of filter. So it filters the candidates you've got this job that they want you to do, and then you've got all of these applicants, and you've got maybe this one HR person who's like, holy crap, 6,000 people have applied to this job. So they use an ATS to sort of filter out candidates which aren't suitable and to funnel them down into a manageable level for the HR person. Now, depending upon the level of complexity and also sophistication of the ATS, it may have the ability to rank those candidates. And then what we're kind of thinking about is an ATS is basically kind of like keyword parsing. So keyword parsing is it's searching for very particular skills and experience, and it's saying, oh, you've got 26 things that you're looking for. We've identified these 26 skills and experiences that you're looking for in your job description. So we're going to match candidates and say they match 24 of the 26 things. That's a good candidate. This candidate doesn't really match anything. Now, bearing in mind, and this is an important thing to think about, robots are sophisticated, but they don't have common sense, right? So what that means is if your keyword doesn't match almost exactly, it might be discounted. Take something really simple like MS Office versus Microsoft Office. Now, for most people who know anything about computers, if you said to them, oh, I know MS Office, they're going to go, oh, MS equals Microsoft. Yeah, cool. But to a computer, they're just going to go, doesn't know Microsoft. Now, the more sophisticated ATSs might, but we need to operate on the assumption that the ATSs are not particularly sophisticated. So now we kind of know the problem that the CV solves. What is the percentage of CVs that actually kind of make it through the filter to this human being, to this HR person? Well, actually, there's a lot of misinformation about this, and this can be found in articles from Forbes, from CIO, which is Chief Information Officer, or from companies like Top Resume. And the figure that kind of gets bandied about a lot is this 70% of CVs are filtered from the ATS when you first apply, so 3/4 of the jobs. And when I looked into that, I was like, holy crap, I mean, where did they get that from? Because everyone quotes a study. So it's like, oh, sweet, oh, I love studies. Let me go and read this study. So after I did a lot of reading about the study, turned out to be from 2012 from an American company called Practel, who had a product called Resumator Pro, which charged people $24.95 to use their service to apply for jobs and make your resume better. It was like how to beat the ATS. So all things aside, it kind of has an agenda, right? To sort of say like, oh, your CV's crap, but if you give us money, we'll make it better and you'll beat the ATS. Also, Practel went bust in 2013. So I guess they weren't really that good at what they were doing. So we kind of figure that this 75% figure is basically horseshit. And a lot of companies quote this figure, and it's just, there's no basis for it. So we did some more digging around, and there's a really good article in the description from a website. It's called Ask a Manager, and this woman reproduced an article from another HR professional who basically did all of this work, so we're not taking any of the credit for it. So how can we find a figure? Well, the best thing that we could find, which was found by this woman whose article was reproduced on Ask a Manager, was a quote from a Wall Street Journal article from 2012 by John Sullivan, a management professor at San Francisco State University, who says, at many large companies, the tracking systems screen about half of all resumes. Now bear in mind, that's 9 years old. I mean, what percentage of CVs do you think ATSs filter out? Or do you have more up-to-date data? If so, please put an answer in the comments. I'd love to know, I'd love to find out, because I'm a numbers geek. So let's just basically assume that ATSs filter out 50% of CVs. So now we want to we know that all we need to do is make our CV good enough to be the 50% that makes it past the robots and gets seen by a human being. Cool. Let's talk about general CV principles. How can we make sure our CV is part of the 50% that makes it through to getting viewed by a person? Here's 4 principles to think about. Number 1, CVs are basically about matching patterns. The ATS wants to find the keywords that are in the job description and match it to your skills and experience in your CV. If the ATS feels like you're a good match, you pass. If not, you fail. So the number 1 priority is getting your CV to match the job description in a natural way. Number 2, a human is unlikely to look at your CV when you first apply. An ATS will filter first and then show the recruiter the best CVs based on its algorithm. So we want to optimize for the ATS first and the human second. Almost as a follow-on from this, number 3, an ATS therefore doesn't care about what your CV looks like. They care about what it says, because all that they can pass or recognize is plain text. They want to match your keywords to the keywords it's searching for that particular job. Of course, a recruiter at some point is going to look at your CV, so it can't just be a stream of text, but we can get rid of a lot of the questions around visuals. And finally, basically building on the first 3 principles, there is no perfect CV. Your CV should change and adapt itself based on the job description. CVs are fluid and are liable to change, which honestly is why most advice about CVs is complete bullshit. Don't forget to hit subscribe to get new videos each week on how to get hired. Now let's talk about the best practice for writing a CV using the SSE framework. Sounds so cool, right? SSE framework. I literally just thought of that. I've never really thought about it like that, but it has to be cool and like hooky because it's a YouTube video, right? So I'm like, oh my god, what's this framework, Mike? Okay, so I've been helping clients with their CVs to get interviews and get jobs at some of the world's biggest and most difficult to get into companies since 2013. Now, I'm not saying this to brag, but I am bragging a little bit. What I'm trying to say is that I basically haven't really changed the way that I look at CVs since 2013. So I've used the same methodology for 8 years. It's been tweaked a little bit, but ATSs were becoming a thing in 2013. The other thing is really be mindful when you think about the information or advice that you get, and this is true for any subject, is that person or company getting the results that you want? Anyone can write a CV. You can get a CV template online for free. You can get a CV template on Word. It's easy enough to kind of put the document. But the point is, the document is not any good in and of itself. It's there for a purpose, which is basically, is this a CV that's getting interviews? Is this a CV that's helping me to unlock those doors? If it's not, and if people aren't really talking about that, then I would avoid them personally, because I think you're getting too caught up in the kind of flashy magic and tricks for optimizing for humans and for things to look pretty. And like we already covered, an application tracking system doesn't care if your CV is pretty. I mean, if you look at, there are actually Like there is a society of resume writers. There's actually an annual competition for resume writing, which is great, but it's mainly focused around the US market, which is different to the UK market. And that's another thing to kind of consider, which is the cultural fit. And we're really specifically talking about the UK.